Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
After the excitement and late nights in the Commons last week, MPs are having a little break, the poor dears, this week as we head into the parliamentary recess for February. But there's still plenty in the diary in the near future. Let's just remind ourselves of some key upcoming dates, and there they are. We've got the two by-elections on February the 23rd. The budget is on March the 8th. That will be the last ever spring budget, at least under this government anyway, because it moves to the autumn. European Council is meeting in Brussels on the 9th, 10th. And the government deadline for triggering Article 50, self-imposed by the Prime Minister, is the end of March. And then we come to the first round of French presidential elections. That particular round narrows all the candidates. There'll probably be about 8, 9 of them down to 2. The 2 who come first and second then go into a playoff round on May the 7th. And that will determine who the next president will be. Steve, listening to Oliver Letwin and to the Labour leader in the House of Lords, is there any way you think that that end of March deadline for Mrs May could be in jeopardy?
No, I don't actually. And Angela Smith couldn't have been clearer with you that they would do nothing to block not just Article 50, but that timetable. Yeah. So I would be surprised if they don't make it. And given her, Theresa May's, explicit determination to do so, not to do so would have become a sort of problem for her. So I think one way or another they'll get that.
Yes, I mean, remember, before this Article 50 vote last week, there was actually a vote in the Commons for the deadline, to agree the deadline, again, by all sides of the House.
Janet, plain sailing, do you think?
Yeah, there's no serious parliamentary resistance. And as Steve says, it would be a personal embarrassment, I think, for the Prime Minister to name the end of March as the deadline and then to miss the deadline unless she has a phenomenally good excuse. I reckon the invocation of Article 50 will actually change the atmosphere of politics for the next 2 years. As soon as those negotiations begin, people in our profession will hunt for any detail and inside information we can find. Things will be leaked, I think, from the European side from time to time. It will dominate the headlines for a solid 2 years and really change politics.
Well, let me just raise a possible a dark cloud, no bigger than a man's hand, that could at least complicate the timetable, because the royal assent on the current timetable has to come around the 13th. I would suggest that the Prime Minister can't trigger that till she does get the royal assent. If there's a bit of ping pong, it could delay that by several days. And the last thing the Europeans will want, because they've got another, I don't think we showed it up on the screen, they've got another big meeting at the end of March, which is the 60th anniversary of the Treaty of Rome. They do not want Article 50 to land on the table as they're celebrating
And
the
Theresa May
foundation.
shouldn't do it then, because it will upset them and
no,
set the wrong tone.
It will really infuriate everybody.
My guess is she'll have done it by then, and there won't be much ping-pong. Again, this is between the Commons and the Lords.
Yes.
I mean, Angela Smith couldn't have been clearer that they might send something back, but then they didn't expect a kind of a long play over this. So I don't think there will be ping-pong.
The Lib Dems have a lot more. Again, there's almost an irrelevance in the Commons, but certainly not in
They've
the
got
Lords. They feel rather
got a
differently
big
about
presence
this.
in the Lords.
Now, we don't know yet what the European Union negotiating position is going to be, and we don't know that because there are several crucial elections taking place. The Dutch taking place in March, and then the one we put up, the French. And at the moment, the French one it seems like it's coming down to a playoff in the second round between Madame Le Pen of the National Front, who could well come first in the first round, and this sort of Blairite figure, independent, centre-left-ish, Mr. Macron. He may well get through on that. And the outcome of that will be an important determinant on our negotiations, Janet.
You couldn't have two more different candidates. You've got a nationalist, National Front candidate, and on the other hand, the closest thing France could ever have to a liberal president, you'd imagine. And
with a small L.
With a small L, a reformist, economically liberal president. And it would be the most French thing in the world to elect someone who, while the rest of the world is electing populists and anti-elitists, to elect someone who I think is the son of a teacher and a neurology professor who has very centrist, economically liberal views, who went to ENA is absolutely a member of the French elite. It would be the most French thing in the world for them to elect someone like Emmanuel Macron in this zeitgeist, which is why I can absolutely see them doing it, actually.
If it's Le Pen in the second round, then Brexit becomes a minor sideshow. Yeah. If it's Le Pen, the very future of the European Union is now in danger, regardless of whether we were in or out. But I would suggest that if it's Mr. Macron, that still presents some problems. He doesn't have his own party. He will not have a majority in the French Assembly. He is untried and untested. He wants to do a number of things that will be unpopular, which is why a number of people close to Mrs. Le Pen tell me that she's got her eye on 2022. She thinks it will go to hell in a handbasket under Mr. Macron.
Yeah, but he hasn't got the experience at all. And we've seen what happens when you get politicians who aren't very experienced getting elected to major roles. What I find absolutely fascinating here is now it's not just all to play for in France and such big choices ahead of them. It's the fact that what happens in France, and indeed what happens in Germany, not so much Holland, I think, but Germany later on in the year, the federal elections there, is how much it impacts on what we are going to get in terms of our deal, how much our Brexit vote is impacting on them. Madame Le Pen, as you say, her situation in terms of Brexit is only really coming about really because of our Brexit vote. And it's at the time that we are trying to, as a leaver, withdrawing ourselves from European politics, it is fascinating how much European politics are going to affect us.
And you do see what Matthew Goodwin was talking about earlier in the show, is that what we do know, almost for sure, is that the socialist candidate will not get through to the second round.
Yeah, interestingly.
But it could come fifth. But the centre-right candidate, I mean, if we were discussing this a month ago, we'd be saying it will be a playoff between the centre-right candidate and the National Front. Yeah. Now we're not even saying that.
No, and in fact, Matthew Goodwin, who's spent a lot of time in France recently, isn't entirely sure that Le Pen will get into the second round, which is quite interesting. It is, I mean, it's going to be as important for the future of the European Union as in retrospect the 2015 British general election was. Remember, if Labour had got in, there would have been no referendum. So that referendum has transformed the European Union because we're leaving. And the French election is as significant, I think.
Well, we think it's very important, which is why we will be live from Paris on April the 23rd, on the day that France goes to the first round of polls.
I've been getting away with it.